So you want to talk about that arrest near the Trump rally, right? Let's deep dive into this because, wow, some of these details are really strange.
Yeah, it really does feel like one of those things almost like ripped from the headlines.
This isn't just your typical day in the courtroom kind of story. You've got fake license plates, claims of VIP access, and enough passport confusion to make anyone's head spin.
It's like something you'd see in a spy movie, you know? Except this is all going down at a political rally. And then you've got the whole back and forth between the local sheriff and the Secret Service.
Okay, so let's rewind for a sec. Back to October 13th, 2024. Trump's holding a rally in Coachella Valley, California. Pretty standard for him, right?
Seems like it.
Yeah, well, not quite Vem Miller, a 49-year-old from Las Vegas. He's headed to this rally in his SUV, but he's not exactly there for the typical Trump supporter experience.
Oh, really? What do you mean?
So he tries to get past security, right? Makes it to the first checkpoint, no problem. But at that second checkpoint, things go sideways. His, let's just say, not-so-convincing license plate, it catches the eye of a sheriff's deputy.
Not so convincing. What was it, like handwritten on a pizza box or something?
Pretty much. Reports say it was
Yeah.
obviously fake, and it doesn't stop there. We're talking fake passports, driver's licenses with all different names. It's almost too much, even for a deep dive.
Sounds like someone's been brushing up on their sovereign citizen handbook.
Can we hit pause on that for a second? For anyone who might not know, what exactly are we talking about when we say sovereign citizen?
Right. So basically, the sovereign citizen movement, it's all about this deep distrust, like a fundamental rejection of any kind of government authority. They believe they're not subject to federal, state, or local laws.
So they're basically creating your own rules outside of the system.
Pretty much. They make these fake documents, just like that license plate Miller was using, because they're trying to operate under their own made-up systems.
And that obviously leads to some, let's just say, interesting interactions with law enforcement.
You think? It's like trying to play basketball with someone who's playing by football rules. It's just not going to work. They're operating on their own terms, and that always leads to conflict when they bump up against the actual legal system.
Speaking of conflict, let's get back to that rally in Coachella Valley, because this is where things take a turn. For the even more strange, Riverside County Sheriff Chad Bianco, he claims this arrest might have stopped an attempt on Trump's life.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah, I know, right? Bianco even suggested this could have been the third attempt on Trump's life.
Wow. Okay, so we've got some serious allegations being thrown around here. And what's the Secret Service saying about all this? You know, the people actually tasked with protecting former presidents.
Well, funny you should ask. They're painting a very different picture.
Oh, really? How so?
So the Secret Service issued a statement basically saying this whole incident did not impact protective operations at all. And even more importantly, former President Trump was not in any danger.
Okay, so we've got two totally different versions of the story.
Right. Which makes me wonder about Sheriff Bianco. You mentioned earlier he likes the spotlight. Is there more to him we should know about?
Well, it is worth noting that Bianco's a well-known Trump supporter. He even spoke at the Republican National Convention this year. Now, that doesn't mean his concerns are invalid, but it definitely adds another layer to this whole situation.
Definitely does.
No.
So where does that leave Vem Miller, the guy at the center of all this? Is he a full-blown member of the sovereign citizen movement, or is there more to his story?
And that's what makes this case even more interesting. Get this. Miller is a registered Republican. He even ran for a state assembly seat in Nevada back in 2022, lost. But still, it adds a whole other twist, don't you think?
It definitely muddies the waters a bit. This isn't someone living completely off the grid, totally detached from society. He's participated in the political system, yet here we are.
And that's what I think is so important to remember here. The sovereign citizen movement, it's not as simple as it might seem on the surface. There's a whole spectrum of beliefs and actions within the movement. Remember that story we covered? The one with the self-proclaimed sovereign guru who got evicted from his own self-declared republic?
Oh yeah, how could I forget?
Right. Well, that's a far cry from showing up at a political rally with a car full of unregistered firearms. There's a whole range of behavior within these movements.
And then there was that other case, remember? The one where a self-identified sovereign citizen was stalking a mayor about, get this, 5G concerns.
Yeah, talk about a range of grievances, right?
It seems like they're all over the place.
Well, the common thread is that distrust of authority. But how that actually plays out, it's all over the map. Not everyone who buys into these beliefs is out there posing a threat to public safety.
Which brings us back to Coachella Valley. How much of a threat was Vem Miller? Are we talking about a situation that could have turned violent? Or was this just someone with some misguided beliefs who stumbled into something they didn't fully grasp,
I think that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? There's so much we still don't know.
especially with the investigation still going on? But we do know this whole thing raises some serious questions about security at these rallies.
Yeah.
Think about it. If someone with a fake license plate and unregistered guns can get that close to a former president, what does that say about the security protocols in place?
Yeah, it's a bit unnerving when you really stop and think about it.
Like, how much are we really prepared for situations like this?
It really highlights the need for constant vigilance, right? Security measures have to evolve, especially in this day and age where political tensions are so high. Finding that balance between public safety and individual rights, it's more crucial now than ever.
It's a tough line to walk, that's for sure.
For sure. So we've got this incident, right? And it almost feels like it's part of a much bigger conversation. Something about politically motivated violence in the world today. What do you think?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you can't just brush this off as an isolated incident. This feels like a symptom of something much larger, don't you think? Like this growing divide we're seeing in society. It's pushing people to extremes, you know?
It's like this feeling of being unheard, of the system being rigged against them. It manifests in different ways, right? For some, it's joining these extremist groups. For others, it's resorting to violence. It's complex.
Definitely. And speaking of complex, how do we even begin to unpack all of this?
Yeah.
How do we balance the need for security with things like freedom of speech and the right to assemble?
Big questions, right? And there are no easy answers. It's something that's been debated for centuries. But I think a good starting point is open and honest dialogue. We need to have these tough conversations. But we have to be careful, too. We can't just resort to fear-mongering and demonization. We have to understand why these things are happening, what's driving people to these extremes, and address those root causes.
Easier said than done, right?
It's a process, but it's a conversation we can't afford to ignore. I'm hoping this whole incident will serve as a wake-up call, you know?
A wake-up call to what?
A wake-up call to the very real divisions that exist in our society and the very real consequences of not addressing them. I'm not saying it's going to be easy, but we have to find a way to bridge these divides.
Because at the end of the day, no matter our political beliefs or backgrounds, whatever it may be, we're all sharing this planet, this country.
That's right. And finding ways to coexist peacefully, even with those we disagree with, it's not just some idealistic notion. It's crucial for our collective survival.
It's almost like this whole thing, it shines a light on a much bigger issue. We talked about the security concerns at the rally, and even the possibility of things escalating, turning violent in this super politically charged environment. But what about Vem Miller himself? What do we make of him?
You know, that's the part that really gets me thinking, that I find so interesting. Here you have this guy, he's straddling two completely different worlds.
It's true.
On the one hand, he's a registered Republican, someone who even took part in the political system, ran for office. But then on the other hand, he seems to be aligning himself with this movement that basically rejects the whole sister itself, the legitimacy of it all.
Yeah, it's a real head-scratcher, and I think it speaks to something we haven't really unpacked yet about the whole sovereign citizen thing.
Right.
It's tempting to just put them all in a box, slap a label on them, and call it a day.
Right, exactly.
But the reality is way more complicated than that.
It is, and it's dangerous to oversimplify these things. Attributing their rise just to economic anxiety or political disillusionment, it just doesn't quite capture it, you know? The ideology itself, with its own interpretations of the law, of history, it all plays a huge part.
It's like they've created this whole other reality, one where they get to pick and choose which rules to follow, which, as we've seen, can lead to some very real-world consequences.
And that's where I think these deep dives, they become even more important.
Right.
Because it's not just about satisfying our curiosity, right? It's about equipping ourselves with the knowledge to understand and navigate a world where these situations, they're becoming more and more common.
So where do we go from here? What can we even do with all this information?
Well, there's that saying, right? Knowledge is power. I think the more we understand these movements, their motivations, what drives them, their ideologies, their tactics, the better equipped we are to have productive conversations, to challenge misinformation, conspiracy theories, all of it with facts and reason.
I like that. It almost feels like this incident, as unsettling as it was, it's like this opportunity for all of us to reflect, to examine our own roles and the systems we're a part of.
Absolutely.
And to think about how we can each contribute to a society that's safer, more understanding.
I love that, yeah. It's about fostering empathy, even for those whose beliefs might seem strange or even scary to us, because when it comes down to it, we're all in this together, right?
We are.
Finding that common ground, even when we disagree, it's not just a nice idea, it's essential.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Mm.
It's a powerful message to end on, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Even amidst all the chaos and uncertainty, there's always hope for something better, for a brighter future.
I agree.
As long as we're willing to listen, to learn, to engage in dialogue,
Yeah,
really talk to each other.
absolutely. Well said. And hey, thanks for having me on this deep dive. It's been a really thought-provoking conversation. I've enjoyed it.
The feeling is mutual. Thanks for being here. And to everyone listening, thank you for joining us on this journey. Remember to keep asking those tough questions, keep seeking out different perspectives, keep learning, and most importantly, keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay curious.